All right, hello everybody, and welcome on back to some more Sunday Musings. I'm your host A-Rye, and we are getting quite a lot done. Like, look how big that building is getting. Oh yeah, it's almost a third of the way to halfway done, actually, as far as like making the stairs. Because I want to go to build height, which is actually that left column is all the way up to build height, which I believe is 320 if I remember right. But anyways, that's the max we can go. I have some spruce so I can spruce up the other columns, but I've also kind of been just like, oh, we'll just keep building the floors. That way if we fall, it's either not going to be a deadly fall if we fall on the middle part, or if we fall like 80 to 90% around it, minus landing on the boat, or landing on this strip, or landing on the Wizards of the Coast. That's the only real danger of falling off of the side. I mean, unless you like, if I'm unable to make it away from the lip, but yeah, I did something like that in the Fortnite also, like how they have the zip lines that go up and down. I missed it and I jumped down and I was about to fall to my death, but I was able to grab it at the very last second, and so technically my character was ziplining, not free falling. And it's just funny how that happens. It feels like the idea of like being in an elevator and then jumping at the last second and like living, but you're not thinking of how your body is already in so much motion, and Newton and his, well, either way, the laws of motion is like an object in motion stays in motion, and it's a similar concept to why a fly doesn't just smack the back window when it's flying around in your car. As long as your windows are closed and the air pressure is constant, or more or less so, like it's very slow changing. So even if there's like a crack in your window, like okay, eventually it'll leak out and then it'll cause problems. But if you roll the window down, that's introducing new air that's pushing around on the other air in the car. And air isn't just oxygen, it's all the carbon dioxide gases, everything. Gases coming from you, like, you've been to Taco Bell or whatnot. No. Um, but yeah. And that's a mix of the Facebook stuff too, because I follow a couple of groups there, but I try to be a little more guarded with Facebook because that's more like my family stuff. I'll post pictures of my kids every now and then, and and it's a very scary thing. Like I'm really glad there's people like my professor out there hunting predators. Like that's what he does for his day to day. Like he's still with military intelligence, and like he's hunting people that would hunt and prey on kids. So mostly, I mean, I think there's murder in there too, but he does digital forensics on technology, and I applaud it. Like, and that's a concern out of using the Red Key USB because it does completely wipe devices. I haven't tried it yet on like tablets or something, but I mean, I do have some test tablets, like also from work, some old Androids or Samsungs, and like, and they're not going anywhere. They're not leaving this house, like, and they're not tied to anything. I've already signed out and like disconnected from any work stuff, and actually, the one that was connected to an employee's stuff that's no longer with the company. So that part wasn't even that bad. But just to be absolutely 100% safe in a zero trust security mindset, which we have to be in, unfortunately, like until we can trust people to be people, and it's really until people to be mature enough to understand like what's really going on. And we're getting there, and I feel like more transparency in politics and more transparency in business for the general public, because I studied business, international business actually, for my minor. I didn't pay a lot of attention in that class, I'll admit, but I did do a lot of sociology, psychology, anthropology, a bunch of ologies to try to understand people. Just in my, they were actually the electives, and I was just kind of taking whatever classes I wanted. That was before they enforced where you had an advisor code, meaning that you went and talked to an advisor and got a list of approved classes for your desired major. Excuse me, because you don't actually have a major in the beginning. You have to like meet certain qualifications. Like I was trying to be an electrical engineer, but to get into the major, I had to get caught up on math. So I was doing prerequisites my freshman year, and that part was okay. I was doing the PACE program, and even though I was up to like pre-calc and whatever in high school, and trying to remember that, I think we were really just talking more about number patterns and like the changes, like the differences in the changes, to try to find patterns, which it really does lead up to calculus, to where you're taking integrals and um, derivatives. I'm trying to remember what else calculus. And I didn't make it to Calc 2. I tried. I failed miserably. In fact, I was sitting there with this other kid, hardcore Republican kid that I've befriended on Facebook just because we were struggling together, like peas in the pod, failing a class together, and we were doing the test. And I even asked her during the test, or no, I can't remember who did it first, me or him. But one of us asked, like, if we even got like a 90, would we pass the class? And she looked at the calculations, and for both of us, our teacher took pity, or our professor took pity, and she was just like, you wouldn't. Uh, I think it might have been me that asked, and then she was like, you wouldn't pass with a C if you got, this on the like 100 on the test. And so there was literally no, and I don't even know if it was like pass with it. Anyways, I don't think we wouldn't have been able to have the class had we completely aced the test. So I looked around, I was like, well, I'm not gonna do this then. I think I'm gonna just turn it in as is and just accept that I failed the class. She's like, okay, that's fine. I just no fighting, no like and I was so trained to. I remember this now because I was like, no way does that work. Like try to weasel out of a test, but then if you know there's no point, it's completely hopeless. I mean, you still like, the nerd in me wants to say, well, you should at least try it so you practice it and you know what's on it. Like, I know what's on. I could just read the titles of the chapters of each lesson. Like, I still have the giant calculus book. I believe we did Calc 1 and Calc 2 out of the same book. I don't know. But either way, I could just look up what. In fact, I think you can audit classes now for free. So I could probably just audit a calculus class somewhere. And they're hosted on some of like Harvard and like Ivy Leagues and anyways, there's a whole bunch of resources out there to audit classes where you don't technically get the grade from it, but if you could do like science fair type presentations, even using things like Scratch or even this, like, explain calculitic functions here and write them down in books and leave them in places, which I think I might, maybe not calculus, but like I started to do it with computer science. There's some books over there in the bookshelf, I believe. So like having a virtual library of Alexandria, but I also like talking about it too. Like, I mean, I did a whole Borderlands bunch of videos where I just explained, well, Borderlands 3, and I explained, um, so I want to be careful with that part, and I need to get some dyes. So let's go ahead and leave the panes here. Because, yeah, I want to finish putting the glass in. I like that theme. I mean, it's kind of a darker glass, so I don't think it's like as see-through. But maybe we could do a few, let's see, do I need to take any? Let's take that. And might as well take these. Okay. But I might do a couple floors of just like walled off, like some privacy. Or maybe within there, have like little rooms. It'll look kind of like on Bloodborne, the Academy. And that's a pretty creepy place. But it has like little rooms within, like, yeah, giant open areas with hallways. So you can have a lot of fights and whatnot. But anyway, so for the dye to get the green, I'm going to make it all the same glass I decided as well. Um, you can actually cook cacti. It's kind of counterintuitive, like, but you basically reduce a cacti down to, I think I already took it all. Yeah, that's all just stone. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to plant a lot more cacti. Hmm. Let's go put stuff away. Wonder what I can take out of here and maybe make this like, well, so I already have a lot of dyes here. And coral. Actually, let's take the coral out. Um, coral fish, rabbit leather, even that. Oh, cacti. That'd be good. Dead coral. Well, alright. Then ice can go here. And really need to find an ice biome to harvest ice. And if we're looking at, let's see, so there's Indarius. And I think the ice is like over here, down, and maybe even over one more and down. But there's a bunch of snow and ice like down in this area. But or maybe this area. So like this one or one below it. But anyways, let's see what else can we get rid of. Fish stuff. Oh, whoops. There we go. So all that stuff can be in that chest. And I gotta figure out where to put the cacti because I don't want to like flood this entire area. Or at least maybe up until the cows. Hmm. Okay. And I'm just gonna have to accept that my armor is gonna slowly take damage over time. Or I could take the armor off, but at this point, I'm not too worried about it. Golden pants are kind of a concern, which maybe we should go ahead and take those off. But I can even enchant this armor eventually. It's just harvesting cacti, you tend to have to take some damage. There we go. So we have a nice little mini field there. Yeah. We'll just have to remember that before we go. Maybe we just constantly have that, because if we go to the nether, in fact, maybe that's something I should do is like, well, first get that. Maybe build a bunch of armor. Or go harvest the piglin farm. The zombie piglin farm. Also, we have a bunch of this, too. And so, zombie piglin will spawn on magma blocks, but other mobs won't. So that's a good way of siphoning out and filtering the aggro mobs that can attack you. Let's see, so we don't have the dye yet, and I think we dropped off a bunch of the blocks of it. So I could probably do... Well, yeah, I mean, I have enough glass, I should go ahead and do that. I still need to add those everywhere. I mean, that's pretty efficient. Okay. Maybe I didn't have as much as I thought, but I will have some more cacti. Well, maybe, maybe not, because I'm not really close to them. The cacti might not be growing while I'm doing all this. I really need to fix this too, because I mean, it is on the outside. But if I added like access to it on the inside, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Ah. Yeah. Oh, I guess I could just go up the stairs. Oops. Because that's the downside to using wooden stairs. Ah. So, anyways, the former military vet that has also done things that he's not allowed to talk about in public, which kind of makes me think of like wet work or black rock or whatever the contractors are that still like kill people and do like very illegal things, but they do it under the flag of like being a military contractor or something, or like I don't know, being like a secret arm of the government that doesn't have to follow the same rules, but at the same time, if they're caught, I don't know. Like I don't know how much is like Mission Impossible, like Hollywood hocus pocus, or if it's actual like, oh yeah, no, they do that to avoid, just like tax evasion. They do all these backflips to avoid the law. I don't know. And then it's like, well, where's the IA for all that? And then, anyways, my point is the guy's like ex-military, and now he's back to the idea of like, weed is the devil, and people should just buck up and, they should be able to handle themselves. And it's easier said than done if you're a white male. I mean, and again, people are going to be like all angry, like, oh, you're attacking, white, especially straight white males. Like, they're such a minority now. No, they're not. Like, and I am one. Like, I'm a straight white male, and like, I've enjoyed the benefits of being. I mean, blonde hair and blue eyed too. Like, I mean, not that that's important at all, but the white male part is. And I've had 3 people now come out on the X app and say they don't think women should vote, and it's like the most ridiculous like type of thing I've heard in a long time. I was like, wait, what? I mean, because first it was like my friend that said it, and we're not talking right now, but I kind of upset him. I was saying some other things, but basically, like, pointing out how a lot of MAGA or just following Trump is not really being patriotic at all. Like, it's actually being like anti-patriot because he calls military people suckers and losers. And then I've heard the full like brunt of that idea or that point from Trump. He's like, we shouldn't be going to war. We shouldn't be killing needlessly. And I agree. The whole Iraq invasion was unnecessary. And although, yeah, like part of me is glad we got Osama, another part of me is very concerned that, yeah, it was Osama, but was it really just us, like, pretending to be like, oh no, we're in danger, like, an inside job. And South Park even has a whole episode on whether or not 9/11 was an inside job. And it's a very scary topic because if it was a false flag attack, then we just went and killed a bunch of people for no reason. I mean, yeah, we cleared out some of these, extremists that would cause us problems if given the chance. And that's what this guy's trying to argue is like, well, they want death for America. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Like we need to stop that. We need to fix that. But there's different ways to go about fixing that. There's the preventative way, like with these preventative blue teaming concepts that I've been, preaching about for a while. And it is funny because it's usually on Sundays is when I have the most free time to do these videos. But um, I do want to get into streaming eventually. I'm just not ready for that yet. Like having a lot of people, it's fine. Like and back when I was streaming, like I did have a lot of fun with it. But I ultimately stopped because it's just weird. Like being forced to have conversations with people. Now the regular people, and I feel really bad about the one person. You know who you are. We were actually playing games together, and without a mic, without talking. So I have no idea of knowing if they were like an underage kid or or the same age as me or twice as old as me, and it didn't matter because I didn't communicate anything that would be inappropriate for any of those categories, just in case. Like, I mean, plus that's not what I was trying to get out of streaming, like any romantic thing or I mean, back in the day, I remember I did go into a chat room and I did end up having a romantic thing with this girl from Nebraska. We actually did like video chat back before video chat was even a thing. I mean, it was it was complicated to set up and then it was glitchy, it didn't work, but needless to say, and we were both underage. So it facilitated something that we wouldn't be able to do in person, although it wasn't that great and she was still trying to convince me to drive out there and I was almost convinced. And I remember this was before I even knew how to drive. and the only vehicle I had available to me was a stick shift truck, an old Toyota, which is still running around BV. Like we sold it to some people up there for like 400 bucks, I want to say. Just because we didn't want to pay the fees and the mess to get rid of it. Like, take it to a dump or anything, you got to pay money. And like, we actually made 400 bucks, and someone, got to drive it a little bit more. It sounded like a lawnmower. Anyways, my point is I was about to drive from Buena Vista to I forget where in Nebraska. We'll leave that out. Just somewhere on the Colorado side of Nebraska. I've never been to Nebraska. Like, I mean, I've been through, like, because my parents have taken me to Wisconsin, but you know, what do I know about Nebraska? And this is before we had Google Maps and everything. This is like, we had paper maps like pirates, and yeah, the struggle of adolescence and puberty, because it was definitely puberty. I mean, anyways. And now it's like you got Snapchat and you can do that in instantly and talk to people discreetly and do all sorts of like things, prepare, get, and that's good for communication for relationships. Like, to a point. I mean, it's when you get the creepy people, like, and I do stand by I agree with that. The age thing, you should be within 4 years of age. Um, Consent from a parent, yeah, that's a thing when they're around 17, 18, and then even then, as well as, because like, I'm thinking back to even in my high school days, like, I almost went to prom with this senior, and just as like a friend thing, but I think it was going to be like, like how many duties of prom are you going to do? So, anyways, I was prepared for it. Like, I mean, and that would have been okay. Like, it does seem weird, and actually, I broke up with a girl. She was gorgeous too. This really cute cheerleader, but just because she was a freshman, I was a senior. I was like, it's just too weird. It's too big of a spread. Like, going to lunch with a freshman. Like, so I had to end it. But, and she's all happy. She's got a family now. She's good. And that's really conceited that I would even think that I'd have to explain that. Like, I'm not like the God's gift to anyone. Like, it's, it's I was just a boyfriend to her at the same time, and that's fine. Like, and we need to end the accidental patriarchy for that very reason. Like, three people telling me they don't think women should vote, that's ridiculous. Like, that shouldn't be even argued at this point. Like, we're arguing about pro-choice with abortion, and I'm pro-choice. Like, although I'm also pro-preventative measures, like, let's make healthcare and contraceptives freely available to everybody, regardless of, any background or anything. Because that's what I had at CSU. Granted, I paid a lot of money for CSU services, so I was paying for that bowl of condoms there through my ridiculous healthcare bills, and my fees. But I mean, at the same time, if we could design a system to where we can make that work. And I did. I even had a fling with this gal that worked for the contraceptives place, like the adult planning or whatever, or like it's the sex health and safety department or whatever. And it's important, like, reproductive health needs to be addressed. And instead of shying away from it and being like, oh, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to talk about it, or like, or making it awkward for the Pope, like, what contraceptives can we use? And it's really, and then that was more of on church by church basis, because I heard that a Catholic church around here was okay with contraceptives leading up until um, the junction, like when it actually formed, the embryo. And it's like, okay, that's a nice line in the sand to draw. Now, granted, there might be some extreme situations where people will use like Plan B or like, and then even further abortion stuff. But even abortion stuff doesn't happen after a certain amount. Like, you can only do it during the first couple trimesters, and then or until a certain amount of weeks or whatever, and then it's no longer illegal. And that's one thing that some Republicans have been convincing people is that they're trying to abort kids after they're born, which is murder. I mean, so that's infanticide, but like, that's shaken baby syndrome leads to a bunch of infant murder, like infant homicide. Like, it is a crime. Like, we treat it as such. It's not an abortion after birth. There's no such thing. And so right there, there's misleading information that are scaring people, freaking people out, thinking that it's some horror film of like sacrificing children and some barbaric nonsense. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, anybody in their right mind would be anti that. But that's not on the table. That's not being negotiated. That's not being debated. That's still a law. Like, I don't know. And same with gun rights too, and the other right. Like, I mean, the gun rights, it seems scary because, again, mostly Republican politicians and leaders are convincing the public that the Democrats are coming for your guns, when in reality, the weapons ban banned a certain caliber of weapon firing modes. Like it couldn't be like an automatic or easily convertible into like a weapon of death, like of mass death. I mean, military grade. And I still think that that should be reserved to people who pass military grade weapons training and permits. And, even if it was just as simple as getting your fishing license, which is super easy. I've never really been one to fish. I'm not a big fan of fishing or hunting, but I've gotten a fishing license and I've had my hunter safety card since I was like 6. So, I did guns training before I handled a firearm. And I handled a lot of firearms as a kid. Like, I mean, that sounds pretty messed up, but yeah. I mean, having a military dad and a military grandpa that I never even met my military grandpa, Grandpa Sill, but I recently posted it because I'm talking to a soldier. He talked smack about my dad, and I was pretty heated in that moment, but I was like realizing, well, just think, he's just talking smack about a generic dad because you're a Democrat and you're arguing, against his point. So, and I got to get used to that, and I am, and that's why like arguing with people and debating people and discussing things with people because it usually does come down to a discussion, pleasant discussion even. He's pretty much stopped calling me names, and I think I don't even know if he read the article about because I posted a picture of my grandpa Sil, who I'm pretty sure fought in World War II. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be Vietnam, but my dad didn't even fight in Vietnam. He was stationed in Korea during the Vietnam War, but he was drafted and he went. I mean, I don't think he sought service, but the draft was in effect. Like a lot of Americans, went and still want to serve your country, but it's like, oh, this was kind of forced on me. It's like, if you were forced to be a cop in a dangerous place, because you could die being a cop, you could die being a corrections officer in a prison. I mean, there was one person that got killed with a soup ladle, although I don't remember if that was an inmate or DOC worker, but it happens. I mean, it's a dangerous position. So, anyways, military. So, because this guy thinks that I'm just some hippie that, like, just some probably long-haired hippie. My profile picture, it does look like I'm pretty baked in it. Although I think I was just tired that day. I don't think anything was really going on. Not that it matters if it was, because this is Colorado and that's legal now. But like, I honestly don't think there was anything going on that day. I was just holding a book, Neil deGrasse Tyson's. Um, what is that? Cosmic perspective. There you go. And the whole theme of the book is seeing the Earth from space. And that cosmic perspective gives people this perspective or the thinking that, oh, we need to protect this Earth. This is one Earth. We're all definitely linked. Like, we're all sharing the same planet. And we are. And so it's a fair assessment. And Neil sums it up perfectly in like a couple minutes of a clip from YouTube about when he's on the Stephen Colbert show. And it's just like that cosmic perspective makes people want to work together, want to, and he talks about like we have these imaginary lines for our countries, these colorful lines that are on a lot of maps. And it's just not true. Like it's one world, and it's amazing too. And I just got back from Singapore, Malaysia. Well, I was really in Thailand for a couple of days, but I was working, so I didn't really get a chance to go out and explore a lot, and recovering from jet lag. And then we sailed to Malaysia, and then I was just doing IT the whole way. And then once we made port in Malaysia, I got out and I explored a lot. So got a ton of pictures that I'll put on the Instagram, but I don't have that open. It's invite only because I don't want to deal with spam bots and people trying to get at my stuff there. I mean, I kind of do because I'm keeping track of everything that I do with that, and I've had a few on the Twitter, now X app, but like a lottery winner, I played along with that for a while. Even gave out my real phone number, which I think has probably led to some of the spam, but I mean, in all honesty, like you're gonna get spam no matter what. And we used to like write each other's phone numbers in the bathroom stalls, like for a good time, call this, and like it'd just be our buddy's phone. And you'd get calls, you're like, man, what's going on with this? Like, but nobody would come out and say it because that's an embarrassing thing. Like, so most people would just like pretend it didn't happen or wonder why. And then it's like you start going through and thinking of all the people that you've wronged. And that's why I'm gonna build a shrine. It's gonna be my balance shrine because I owe a couple of people some favors, and just owed in general, and then like what you've done, and like scales, if you will. Like I forget what movie it is. Oh, it's the end of this episode, but it's like one of the Egyptian gods movies, and it has like this guy goes to their version of hell. I mean, which is almost the same as Christian hell, like the hell that I grew up studying. But anyways, Um, and they weigh their deeds, like good and evil, to see if they are good, if they qualify for heaven, or if they need to go to hell. And I think it's for like a certain amount of time, for like if you need to pay your debt to your overall life balance, like were you a good person, were you a bad person? And so I feel like that needs to be kind of at the back of everyone's mind, like, how well is our social bank, like, our life debts, like our carbon footprints, if you will, but not just for like carbon and pollution, but that included. So, anyways, I gotta cut this one off. I'll ramble for an hour. So, ta ta for now. I will see you in the next one.